Week 15 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few tight ends. I have his sleeper options this week. The first tight end, Grant Katera of the Philadelphia Eagles. So last week he did find the end zone as Katera, but he's still that fourth or fifth option in this offense behind A.J. Brown, behind Devonta Smith, Saquon Barkley, Hurts running the football. And he's out there in 95% of fantasy leagues. So last week, like I said, he found the end zone as Katera, but it was a great matchup versus the Panthers. I give up the most fantasy points to tight ends on the season, where he had 3 catches, 16 yards, and a touchdown. So this week, a middle-of-the-pack matchup versus the Steelers, where, believe it or not, they give up the 13th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. I think Katera, he could go out there and he'll get a couple targets in this game, but obviously he's a touchdown-dependable tight end, and that's why he's a sleeper and not someone obviously going to be in the starting lineup like Dallas Goedert was before he went down with injury. Next tight end, Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints. So this team decimated, obviously, is the New Orleans Saints. Tons of injuries all over. Rashid Shaheed, we know. Chris Olave, we know. Taysom Hill as well. Now Derek Carr, he's going to be out, and someone's going to have to go out there, make plays, and catch the football for this New Orleans Saints team. So the last few weeks here for Johnson, his numbers have actually gone up. Week 11 versus Cleveland, 3 catches, 30 yards, a touchdown. Week 13 versus the Rams, 5 catches, 36 yards. And Week 14, a good ball game at the Giants, 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. So like I said, this offense is pretty much down to Alvin Kamara, Valdez-Scantling, and Juwan Johnson, the only 3 viable options for this New Orleans Saints team to play with backup quarterbacks and just a banged-up offensive line as well. So if you need a deep sleeper, I think Johnson, his production's gone up. I know that was with Derek Carr in the lineup, and now he's out there in 89% of fantasy leagues. And the third and final tight end I have as a sleeper is Daniel Bellinger of the New York Giants, out there in 99% of fantasy leagues. Theo Johnson, he's most likely out for the season, and Bellinger filled in and got the start last week, and he had a nice game, 5 catches, 45 yards on 7 targets. So we saw a couple seasons ago Bellinger, he had a decent starting role with the New York Giants. Then last year, Darren Waller they brought in was this New York Giant team, but now once again he finds himself in as the starting tight end. And this week it's a matchup where they're going to be chasing points most likely early and often, and the Ravens do give up the 10th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. So if you need a deep sleeper, like I said, Bellinger's out there in 99% of fantasy leagues. That's a few tight ends I have as sleepers for Week 15 of the fantasy football season.